Hi guys, I'm Sam and I'm going to walk you through the analyze portion of our lesson plan on digital health and wellness. We cater this lesson to seventh grade students, so typically around 12 and 13 years old. We felt that these students started to have increasing independence. So, along with this independence is coming access to digital tools and online media. So, we felt that it was important that they start to understand how to appropriately engage with that online content. We also felt that they were frequent users of social media, and they had access to a lot of communication forums and tools at their fingertips. So, starting to teach them how to appropriately use that is crucial. We felt that these students were very tech savvy. They have grown up with technology mostly their whole lives. Honestly, probably their whole lives at this point. So they have known nothing but technology. So teaching them how to appropriately use that, and then even the long-term digital health impacts that come with tech use. So, and we also felt that these students were still developing both socially and emotionally. So at this age, these students are barely teenagers. They are still adolescents. So they are seriously vulnerable to so much, especially when it comes to online. They are getting shown the world at their fingertips, and they need to learn how to use that appropriately. So here is the introduction to our project. Here's outlined the learning needs and then learning objectives. So we felt that it was important that these students understand the importance of balancing online and offline activities. It can become very scary when you don't know how to have that life balance, and especially at that age when they're just online so much, they can really just mess up their life balance, and it's important to have both. So along with this comes teaching them strategies for managing that screen time, and then even practicing responsible online behavior. They need to gain awareness of privacy protection. Like I said earlier, they are very vulnerable, so they need to heavily be taught privacy protection, and then even recognizing signs of digital fatigue and burnout. Especially nowadays when we have technology at our fingertips, burnout is so real and it is impacting a lot more people than it has in the past. I felt it before, and especially these kids are probably feeling it. We felt that they need to develop self-awareness around personal digital habits, and they even need to benefit from whole child interactive and relatable instruction connected to real life examples and experiences. It's always important to back lessons with real world experiences and such, especially a lesson that is on digital media. There is a ton of examples out there that we can show the students and that they can connect with personally if they have not experienced, if they, especially if they've experienced it already. Um, for this unit, for learning objectives, especially for the ADDIE model, we have define digital health and well-being, and then explain why it's important to in today's technology-driven world, identify positive and negative impacts of digital use on mental, physical, emotional health, have students analyze their own digital habits and even evaluate areas where they can improve and make better. Demonstrate strategies for maintaining a healthy digital lifestyle. Um, our phones have options to set screen time. I know it's not something that everybody wants to use, but it does help set boundaries, especially that you're not looking at your phone at certain times, especially when you're trying to sleep or do homework or something. This just really helps alleviate that burnout that can stem from chronic online use. And then we even have collaborate with peers to create a digital wellness action plan that promotes responsible and balanced technology use. So there's our learning objectives and learning needs, and then the introduction to project.
I can't stand this. Okay. To begin the design portion, we will start by defining. How we will do that is we will ask the class what they currently know about digital health and well-being, and then we will have a quiz through an interactive PowerPoint where we will ask true or false questions, and multiple choice questions. And we hope that through this activity, students will learn facts and statistics about the subject. More importantly, the PowerPoint activity will provide a foundation of knowledge about digital health and well being. To move on to the identify portion, we will help students identify the positive and negative effects of digital use, and we will educate the students about it as well. We will do this by providing them with information on how to develop positive and negative online habits. Furthermore, we will help students apply this new content by assigning them into groups for a shared project. Each group will be tasked with creating a digital well being plan for students that are their age. They will then present their project to the rest of the class, and we will help students navigate this information while walking around the classroom and helping them formulate their project. These walkthroughs will also give the teacher the opportunity to find any gaps in their knowledge about the project. We will then go on to analyze. After the PowerPoint, students are tasked to chart their daily internet usage. Their charts hold a section for the hours spent, as well as a section that divides their usage between productive activities and time wasting activities. On the final day, we will take their data and graph it to show the trends between students and view their average internet usage.
Next comes the demonstrate portion of our design. So, after they get in their groups and find their finding, we're going to show students how to apply digital well being to their own life. They're going to have to display various offline activities they can do in place of screen time in case they feel like they're overusing the screens. We're also going to we're going to make them present understanding that time wasting activities are not a bad use of time, but they need to be done in moderation. Sometimes it's good to just turn your brain off and kill some time, but at some point you got to turn your brain back on. And then finally, we're going to ask them to show clear comprehension of why digital well-being is important and a requirement for this essay. We're going to make sure they know the whole portion of why we're doing this. Next, we're going to talk about the collaborative effort. Having them collaborate on this will kind of open their mind up and say, hey, I thought maybe I was just alone in how much screen time I had. This is a big problem we can all work on together. They can share ideas and create an effective plan. And one student can say, hey, when I get overwhelmed, I do this. And then, oh, that's a great idea. I never thought of that. Students will also then present projects to the class and show what they've learned. So all the students, even though they might not be talking directly, can hear the ideas of everybody. And then finally, there's going to be a big class discussion at the end where they can talk about the things that they heard in other projects and say, hey, you know, I like this idea, but if I tweaked it this way, would it still work? And kind of let them not just listen to us and have us tell them what's good for them, but have them come together as a class and say, these things are things we can do as a class, as a generation, as a group of people, not just being told what to do. And through that, we can learn what they took away from the lesson, what they found insightful, and just how it all came together very well. So, for the design portion, we made a timeline. Our timeline is going to be as follows. Monday, we have our introduction PowerPoint and videos that break down the whole portion of the essay, or the whole portion of the lesson, I mean. And then on Monday, we're going to have them begin their online tracking. So we're going to send them home with a sheet of paper to track how much time they spend online. Tuesday, we're going to break them into groups and introduce the end of week project. So, starting Tuesday at the beginning of classes, and when we break them into the groups and give them the project ideas, that way they can start working on it. Wednesday, Thursday, that'll be the group time where they can continue to work on the project, continue discussing, and continue talking. And then Friday will be the presentations. And then we're going to collect the online tracking sheet and discuss the online tracking to kind of come together and really, with this whole week of learning about it, what now that we've all sat down and learned, what can we come together and talk about and say this is what we really have learned and how we're going to continue on throughout the rest of our life, hopefully.
Hello, and welcome to our Digital Health and Wellness Project for Instructional Design Fall of 2025. We'd like to begin with addressing our audience. As a group, we decided that 7th grade students ages 12 to 13 fit this project best. That is because most of us were doing secondary education, but one of us was doing elementary education, and it felt like a good age that met halfway to what we are all teaching. We wanted to help students of this age increase their independence and understanding on how to engage with online content. We know that they are frequent users of social media, online games, and digital communication tools. While students may be tech savvy, they lack awareness of the long-term digital health impacts for them. So they know how to use Instagram, TikTok, but they don't understand a big picture of the repercussions that come with being online. We would also like to help them develop emotionally and socially and help them make themselves prepared to face online influences that may be harmful for them. We want to begin with a quiz, and this quiz is to utilize a barometer of what students already understand about digital health and wellness. We chose to use a PowerPoint for this presentation because it was easier to show instead of actually using Kahoot, but we would use Kahoot in the classroom to do this introductory quiz. And really, we would choose Kahoot because it utilizes a format that students enjoy and it makes learning a game. And at this age specifically, making something fun also makes it interesting, which is something that we would want for the students. It is essential that we understand what knowledge the students already have before we begin the lesson. Therefore, we are able to tweak the projects or any other things that may come up during the lesson, and that is properly addressed. This quiz specifically will give us a better idea of any changes that we need to make on the project, and it gives the student a better idea of what they should expect to learn as the lesson progresses. So now we will start the digital health and wellness quiz. I made sure while making these quizzes that they were vibrant, they were different. So if we were technically using a PowerPoint to show this information, it's pleasing to the eyes. And I think that that goes a long way with students, no matter how old they are. So we begin here with what percentage of youth has a social media account? And it's 56%. And I think that that is both a low number or a high number, depending on how you want to look at it. I think this would be a very interesting question to address after the quiz because I probably would have picked 87%. So it'd be interesting for the students to see that as well. And you'll see here once again that we utilize different pictures to once again make it different. And we're asking, what does digital well-being mean? And it's the balance of technology used for mental and physical health. Next, we'll move on to ask them why digital health is important. And it's obviously to help us stay focused and healthy. I think it's important to understand for the students specifically how digital health and wellness impacts their mental health. With it being 2025, people are talking more about mental health. And I think for 7th graders, this is so important. They're about to go into high school in 2 years, and it's just such a good knowledge for them to have. And we want them to know that poor digital health and wellness can affect your mood both positively and negatively. A digital detox is a great way to reduce anxiety that you have about the internet and technology, and that is absolutely true. Increased screen time can lead to poor sleep and eye strain. Obviously, parents aren't very happy with increased screen time because they are aware of the things that children are exposed to now on the internet. What is one way to protect your digital health? And that is to use strong passwords and privacy settings. I think it's also important to kind of also say to use usernames that do not connect to their actual identity, or to use avatars or photos of something else instead of using pictures of themselves. Which of the above is part of digital citizenship? And that is respecting others online. And this connects to just life in general, being a citizen or a person in the classroom. You need to respect others online in the same way that you would do to the person next to you in class. What should you do if you feel like you are addicted to the internet? You should absolutely reach out to a guardian or school counselor. Internet addiction is just as valid as any other kind of addiction, because as you will see in the other options, using ChatGPT to talk about your feelings is not useful. Spending more time online to distract yourself is not good for your mental health. And forcing you to go lay down in your bed to rest because you have been so inundated by the internet that it's too much, that is not going to help your internet addiction. How do you practice digital well-being after spending a long time on an online assignment? Mindful breathing and stretches with a break from your screen is the ultimate way to take care of your digital well-being and your body itself. So now that the quiz is done, we'd like to introduce the student project. And first, we want to address the learning needs of our students. We want them to understand the importance of balancing online and offline activities. We want to give them strategies so that they can understand how they can manage screen time and practice responsible online behavior. We're not asking them to give up the internet. We're just asking them to learn strategies and implement them to protect and to prevent negative online behavior. We also want them to gain awareness of privacy protection and recognize the signs of digital fatigue and burnout. We would like them to develop healthy sleep routines and positive digital social interactions. We want them to be able to put their phone away at night and not constantly be checking it or be scrolling TikTok at 2 a.m. On a school night. We want them to also be self-aware about their personal digital habits, and we want them to benefit from whole child interactive and relatable instruction that is also connected to real life experiences. Students can absolutely benefit from the internet or using the computer to play video games, but we want them to realize how you can use those things to become well educated and understanding about the world around them. Our learning objectives are to define what digital health and well-being are and explain to them why it is so important in today's technology-driven world for us to talk about this. We also want to identify positive and negative impacts of digital use on mental, physical, and mental health. Once again, we can recognize that the internet is a good thing, but we really want students to realize that it does sometimes come at a cost. We want them to analyze their own digital habits and evaluate areas where improvements can be made. And we would like them to demonstrate strategies for maintaining a healthy digital lifestyle, such as setting screen time limits, practicing digital mindfulness, and engaging in offline activities. These are all things that they can easily do. Most phones come with screen time monitors that they can easily implement. And we'd like them to collaborate to create a digital wellness action plan that promotes responsible and balanced technology use.
For this project on digital health and well-being, we had to lay out some goals. And the students' goals for this was to define digital health and well-being and explain why it's important in today's technology-driven world, identify positive and negative impacts of digital use on mental, physical, and emotional health, analyze the group's digital habits and evaluate areas where improvements can be made, demonstrate strategies for maintaining a healthy digital lifestyle, screen time limits, practicing mindfulness, engaging in offline activities, and creating a digital wellness action plan that promotes responsible and balanced technology through the use of class. So what were the students' directions here is they would be divided into groups, they would gather internet usage data among the group, analyze the finds and present trends, present effectively, collaborate and share ideas, and cite 3 sources that they demonstrated to gain knowledge on digital health and well-being. Each student should present equally in this presentation, and as a result, they will look at the rubric and see what the qualifications are for that. In the rubric, there is a perfect points possible score of 100 points, where excellence 25 points each, proficient is 20 points each, developing is 15, and needs improvement is 10 points each. The lowest possible grade a student can get is a 40 out of 100. So they're not going to ultimately fail this whole thing, but 40 out of 100 is still not a great score. But to get a perfect 100, students would use their research quality to get comprehensive use of diverse sources that thoroughly cover the topic. Their content understanding has to be insightful analysis of the content presented. When they collaborate and teamwork, they have to show exemplary teamwork where all members contributed and presented equally amounts of work. And for the presentation skill, engaging presentation with structure and cohesiveness displays confidence in the presentation. If they have all those four main things in the 25 points each column, they'll get a perfect 100 out of 100 on this assignment.
The digital media tracker is one of the core components of the project. They cannot get accurate data without it. Each student should be able to log every time they use digital media throughout the project timeline. This gives them the date, the time, and the activity that they did while they use digital media. So they can put on December 4th, they spent 45 minutes scrolling through TikTok. On the next day, they maybe spent an hour and 15 minutes on Microsoft Word, utilizing that to write a paper. And then maybe the next login would be that they played video games online for 3 hours on a weekend to show the time that they're spending across all digital media, not just necessarily the internet.
Okay. In this section of our lesson plan, the implementation section, we will be talking about how we implement the skills and information that we learn in class regarding digital health and well-being. So in this section, we'll talk about what these skills look like in action and how the kids can implement them.
Okay, so talking about strategies that we can employ to help kind of ease kids into the classroom and ease kids into the lesson, we think that utilizing a bell ringer or an entry question is a great way to get them engaged with the material and to start thinking about what we're going to be talking about in class. So having students brainstorm what they think is a productive versus a time-wasting activity, it introduces students to thinking about how they use their phones or other devices on a day-to-day basis, what they're actually using them for, and whether they are spending too much time on certain things. This also helps with further down the line when we start doing the log of productive and non-productive um, activities on devices for the data collection portion. It establishes what productive means and what students should be recording as productive. And just generally, as soon as the class starts, students are engaged. They have some time to settle down. They have some time to talk to their neighbors about the question. It's just a good way to transition into the actual lesson for the day.
And in this case, we would also want, or as the educator, we would want to project a positive image, a kind of practice what you preach as far as digital well-being goes, and kind of engaging with the kids on their level and connecting it to your experience as well, so they see what that looks like in the real world. One of the ways that we can do that is once we, start with after the bell ringer, we would then move on to a passive exercise for the rest of goes on the rest of class. This exercise is something that the teacher should participate in as well. And in this exercise, all of the students will put their phones face up on their desk so that they see when they get a notification but um, they're not to touch it. And this can do a couple different things. Um, it can help, acknowledge that we have this piece of technology in our pockets all the time that are doing things and pulling our attention away from what's in front of us. Um, and then we'd also want the students to take note of how they feel um, when they see their phone going off, or that they got a notification, but they can't access it. And then at the end of class, we will have a discussion about how the students felt, how hard it was for them to get through that class without looking at their phone, um, because of how addictive it is, and then tie that in with the information that we had learned that day. Um, and then equally important is having the teacher also um, participate in this. Obviously, you're not really going to be on your phone when you're teaching anyway, but putting your phone on the desk so the students can see that you're participating and practicing what you preach, um, and kind of making it an immersive experience for the students, which will hopefully help them retain um, some of the information that we're talking about.
And our last recommendation is for the group work implementation. So specifically for the digital media usage chart, uh, it's important to check to make sure that students are logging throughout the week. Otherwise, at the end of the week, you may not have enough data, or it may be skewed and not exactly show what we're trying to show. Uh, Having a regular interval at which students should write down, maybe every hour or so between a certain amount of time for like, for example, after they get home, every hour until dinner or every hour until they go to bed, something like that, to just have a time frame for them to keep track of that is identifiable. Uh, and checking on that in class in some way, maybe having a check-in every day or every 2 days, just to make sure that the information is actually being recorded, will just make the lesson move smoother. And for the group research project, we think providing a source, at least one good example of a source to get students started, is a really good way to introduce them to the research and introduce them to what a good source looks like, and what their other sources should look like. Uh, yeah, essentially setting a standard as well as giving them a sort of a push, having them just simply go in and look up .coms and other websites that have, you know, there are 1,000 websites that talk about the dangers of social media and the dangers of phone overuse, but not all of them have research, and some of them are just opinions. So using the World Health Organization's website and their page on digital health, in that would be a good way to introduce the research aspect.
Finally, we have to cover the evaluation of this project. So we analyzed the issue, we designed the lesson, we developed the lesson, we implemented the lesson, and now that it's done, we need to step back and evaluate how we did. So, to evaluate the lesson, we got to look in two different ways. One, we need to evaluate the effectiveness of the lesson. That is, how did the students take in the information we taught them? How, you know, what students did the questions have and how were they answered? And we need to look at how the students retain the information. Another thing is we need to evaluate the lesson itself. So, what information was retained? Where can we fix information retainment holes? And what can we change for the next time we give the lesson, either, down the line or next year? How can we improve it so any issues with the lesson are fixed and we can give more accurate information on digital well-being. So for this lesson specifically, first to evaluate the effectiveness, we have two things. We're a school. The way we evaluate effectiveness, one is obviously with grades. We have the rubric, we have the grade book. We are teachers. We know how to evaluate students and their engagement and their interaction. So one, we can see by the grades, if students, if all your students are consistently failing, that's not because the students are not smart, it's because we're teaching them wrong. So if the grades for the lesson aren't like how we think it is, then that's one way we can evaluate how effective this lesson is. The second way is using the digital media tracker that we had the students do. So, one of the great things is we can look at, how day one differs from day two, differs from day three, obviously. But we can also say, if we give this lesson at the start of the year, near the end of the year, we give it, instead of giving them the whole lesson again, we just say, hey, this week, refill out your digital media tracker, either a month down the line, 6 months down the line, and then we can see what long term changes students had made to their digital media consumption. So next we can evaluate the lesson itself. So we have the grades and we use the tracker. So we can use that tracker and say, hey, students have really, lessened their time on social media, but now their time spending on Xbox or PlayStation gaming is up. That's another form of digital information and digital wellness. We can evaluate the lesson by seeing, where are the gains and where are the weaknesses that our lesson has. So if students, we talk a lot about social media in our lesson, but all it does is shift students away from social media into another form of physical non-well-being. Can we add that to the lesson next time we give it? So that is the ADDIE system. um, we've gone through all the steps. Now we've evaluated the lesson and we're ready to give it next year, next time. Thank you.